Hello. I forgot to cue the next video, but that's fine. Yeah. So this is just a chance to hang out with. I'm going to call you Sam for now because I have a question later about that. Um, just to hang out with Sam here, get to know him, and talk about something that he brought up in a conversation we had a couple months ago about faith that I found interesting and thought other people might like to hear it too. So on that, Sam, how are you doing? Hello? Can you hear me?
Sorry about that. Something got
Oh,
switched off. I'm doing okay. I'm apparently not awake enough to operate my microphone. I'm a little bit snowblind, but otherwise I'm doing good.
did you have a good turkey day?
I did. Yeah. I went over to my sister's house and we played drunken darts and it was a good time.
Drunken darts, not not
Yeah.
not lawn darts though.
No. With pointy darts though.
Right, real ones, not those fake plastic tips.
What's always interesting because everybody was drinking and everybody was armed too. So,
I guess you could do that at home though.
well, I live out in Wyoming, and out here, we don't require even a permit for concealed carry.
Right.
So yeah, you can be armed as much as you like,
Yeah, they
pretty
don't
much
they don't
anywhere.
they don't require that here either. I've been in some circumstances where everyone's drinking and there's guns everywhere.
hmm Yeah, it's not always a good idea, but it's there's no law to stop it out
No,
here.
we were all just hanging out. No one was touching them. Like, we were up north going shooting anyways, and so like the guns were everywhere, but we were done with that already for the day. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, good times. Love the holiday weekend, especially the nice break off of work. So pretty
I'll
much,
be honest with you, man.
what's that?
I don't particularly care for the extra days off work. I have a schedule that like keeps me, I like to stay in that schedule, and when we get extra days off, it throws me off completely.
Okay, so it screws with your flow at the
Yeah.
workplace. Okay, okay. You see, my work is well, so I work as a software automation engineer, and I have
Mm,
tickets. So it's kind of like a fast order cook, just not very fast sometimes. Like
yeah. Yeah, it's not so much the flow while I'm at work. It's just that, like yesterday, for example, was Black Friday. And my body the entire day was just like, no, you should be at work right now. Why are you not at work right now? Because like
okay,
I'm used to the schedule. And so every time we get a short week or something of that nature, it irritates me on like a molecular level.
okay. So it's almost unnerving. It's like you're
hmm
uncomfortable not being where your body thinks you're supposed to be.
Pretty
That's
much.
interesting. All right. So pretty much let's start off talking about you. You've got a YouTube channel, you've got a Rumble channel, which I need to add the link to in the description. You do at least two of your own shows. You've got Abysmal Musings and Screaming into the Void, which I believe you have Abysmal Musings in a few hours from now as well.
We had that last night. That's on Friday nights. Screaming into the Void will be later this afternoon. Yes.
Okay, I got them switched around. So Abysmal Musings is more of kind of like a random. I see you like talking about things that kill things a lot.
Yeah.
Um, last night you were talking about the Baba Yaga and just like the different monsters that are associated with different parts of the world.
Yeah. We have some fun with the topics. Sometimes there's a theme that we're going with for a set period of time, and sometimes there isn't. We did kind of a loose association with Lovecraft throughout the month of October, for example.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
just talking about movies that were inspired by him, about the man himself, about some of his work and some of the work of the people around him. Like the fact that as mouthy as Stephen King is about certain people and their views, it's funny because he made all of his money ripping off of Lovecraft, but whatever. Um, and for those of you who don't believe me, it is a textbook Lovecraftian entity. Just saying. You
okay,
know?
okay. And then your show that you do on Saturdays, the Screaming into the Void, is more political in nature, correct?
It can be. It's not always, but the idea behind that one, that's my flagship show. That's what we started the channel with. And the idea was to be able to talk about literally anything, whatever
Mhm.
piqued our fancy that week. It's become kind of political because that's pretty much what's going on all the time, all around us. But yeah, no, when we can get away with it, we'll talk about other stuff.
Yeah. Would you
You
say
know,
maybe more
early
cultural then?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably fair. I mean, early on, we were talking about everything from the proliferation of SSRIs and their connection to the rise in mass shootings in this country, to the viability of cryogenics, to how black holes work. Like just whatever took our fancy.
Mhm.
Which honestly has kind of strangled any real growth on that channel, because if you don't pigeonhole yourself into one topic, they get
Yeah.
kind of touchy about that, the algorithm.
Yep.
So. But I don't care, because that's what we wanted, what I wanted to do when we started out, and that's what we do.
Yeah, I feel you on that because I don't want to be pigeonholed um into just focusing on one thing. I kind of hate that.
Hmm.
But YouTube will make you do it anyways. Like I had a pretty big gaming stream a few weeks ago, playing Mass Effect for the first time, and that killed all my other videos. Like all of a sudden I was getting no um what do you call it? The
Traction.
impressions. I was getting like
Mhm.
zero impressions. I was going from thousands and thousands and thousands of impressions to like I couldn't even get 100 on a video. And it's like, sure enough, I took that game stream off a couple videos later and it was just back to normal.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the algorithm punishing you. That's not people not seeing your shit.
Yep.
Um, and that same thing happens with me, because I do game streams from time to time too. Whenever I get around to it, or it takes my fancy, or I have some spare
Yeah.
time, really. Um, and yeah, it's some of the game streams do really really well, and the regular streams don't, by comparison, and sometimes it's the other way around. It just kind of depends on the week, really.
Yeah. I yeah, it's super weird. I've even like I don't I'm leaving the interviews up because those are just I don't know, they're just interviews. I don't think that affects it
Mhm.
nearly as much. I don't really ever tag these with anything. They're just there for people to check out. And you know what? It's just a good record to have. Like since like for an example, Vex was the very first interview that I did, and we talked a
Mhm.
lot about the authoritarian COVID crap that Canada was going through. And just recently, she's seeing more repercussions of that crap, so people can go back and check out what she had to say on that interview. As a matter of fact, she's been telling people that. And so, like, I don't know, it just happened to be a coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
um so you've got those two shows, and then you do Star Trek Engage on Sundays.
Yeah, they don't like to mention this part. That whole thing was my idea. I'm just saying. But no, what ended up happening, how that started was, I decided to risk watching season 3 of Picard on the recommendation of some other YouTubers, like Nerdrotic, for
Right.
example, and so I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. I watched season 1, didn't really care for it, skipped season 2 entirely, because it just didn't seem the thing. They're saying this is good. I'll try it, and I got through it. And I called up Ryan over at Legion Talk, and I'm just like, man, have you seen this? This is pretty good. We should do a review on this. And he agreed immediately. But what he didn't tell me was that he hadn't seen any of it yet. And so and we got to talking about it, and we're just like, hey, Horny Alf's saying that this is pretty good too. Maybe we should bring him on. And so the three of us started doing weekly reviews. Originally it was just going to be a one and done, but as it turns out, we can talk forever about nothing. So the first stream was like 3 hours about that first episode. So it was,
Nice.
and the so we're just like, all right, well, why don't we just get through these 10 seasons, make a thing of this? And about halfway through that, we brought in Adam, the Renaissance nerd, and there were some other people who were showing some interest in all that. And by the time we got around to closing out Picard season 3, we're just like, Ryan's only really seen the Next Generation. You want to go back to the beginning and just go through all of it, all the way up through Enterprise? Week by week, make a thing of it. And here we are. So we're about halfway through uh, season 1 of the original series, and it's looking like it's going to be 7 to 8 years before we get through
I was
everything.
gonna
So that's
say
great for all of us.
that's a long time. That is a long time. So
Yeah.
you're
But
gonna do Voyager and everything?
yeah, well, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, Enterprise in release order. We're probably going to do most of the movies too, particularly the ones for the original cast. Um, just to kind of get because Ryan hasn't seen any of that stuff, and so yeah, pretty much a bunch of dudes hanging out, and we got Devil came on. We had the Hijabi Gamer on for a few episodes, and as Gameland joined us as a regular cast member. And some of these guys have been putting in a lot of work. Like our whole intro sequence was Devil, and the
Yeah.
music was done by Paul Dukin and DJ Axis, and it's a work of fucking art. you know
I
all
haven't,
that. And
I've never gotten on early enough to catch the intro. I'm gonna have to try and do that tomorrow.
yeah, it's pretty cool. We do get copyright struck for part of it, just because of some imagery that's used from the original series, but it's
Yeah.
fine. It's a real easy thing to deal with.
Uh,
So
so I'm one of those that Captain Cisco is the best captain. Uh,
I'd agree.
I haven't watched the original series like hardly at all, and then I kind of watched what was it called, Next Generation,
Mhm.
growing up a little bit, not much, but then for some reason I turned on Deep Space Nine, like I don't know, 15 years ago or something on Netflix, and it just devoured it all over a few weeks.
Yeah, that one's my favorite. I mean, I love all of them. Well, let me qualify that. I don't love Voyager. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think Voyager kind of sucks. It's got good episodes. It's got a few great characters, but overall, it's not
Yeah.
good. But I grew up watching The Next Generation. My mother obviously grew up watching the original series, and she introduced all that to me. So we started watching The Next Generation as it aired back in
Hmm.
the late '80s, and I just kept watching Star Trek. So Deep Space Nine came out, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting, and I just, like you said, devoured it. It was Cisco's awesome. He's just awesome. And then we got to Voyager, and that wasn't great. Enterprise starts off rocky, but it gets better, and then it gets canceled.
Yeah, I never bothered with Enterprise, and then when Voyager came out, I remember Voyager coming out because growing up, so my mom was into the Next Generation as well,
Mhm.
and so we would watch that together sometimes, and then we just completely skipped Deep Space Nine when I was growing up for some reason. But I remember when Voyager was coming out, and she was so excited, and we only watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then just kind of forgot completely about it.
Yeah, it's just the like I said, it's got some standout episodes, but and a few great characters and a bunch of mediocre ones. So it's just it's not the best. It is better than most anything that they're coming out with now, but that's a really low bar. So
So, are there any other shows that you're doing? Because I feel like, particularly over the weekends, I feel like I see you everywhere.
yeah, the weekends are when I do most of my tubing, my YouTubing. Um, and so I do those 3 shows. If I can swing it, if I've got time. Usually it's a question of how late work goes. I'll jump onto Royal Rumble over on Legion Talks channel, which takes place like immediately before
Mhm.
Abyssal Musings does. Um, Obviously, I do work for another channel, which is a very political channel called Exiled Lioness 2 for a friend of mine. And I moderate for her, and I run some of the back end and all that. But that's a very different kind of thing. It's just one of those
Right.
things like, if you guys want to check it out, you're more than welcome to, but it's pretty hardcore. So, you might not like what you hear. But I I do work over there usually on Saturday nights and occasionally in the middle of the week whenever she decides she wants to do a pop-up stream kind of thing. And again, with the depending on how late work goes, sometimes I'll be able to make Mellow Mondays on Adam the Renaissance Nerd's channel, which is, a pretty pretty
Yeah,
pretty easy going time.
I've been catching that one. That is like a perfect Monday show.
Yeah, yeah, it
That was
absolutely
an
is.
excellent idea with the Mellow Monday.
Yeah. No, it really is, and I like Adam quite a bit. And Devil's usually there. Devil is a black. I do a number of streams with that guy. He's one
Uh-huh.
of my favorite people on the internet. He's awesome. And then obviously, like yourself, I got invited to be part of the cast on Late Night Mayhem over on Dermy Wormy's channel on Tuesdays. So, like I make that when I can as well. But my work schedule is kind of goofy. I work like noon to 8:30 Mountain Time
Uh-huh.
and Monday through Friday. And so that makes streaming during the week, especially with people who like to stream at like prime time, kind of difficult.
Yeah, because you're barely getting off in time for Late Night Mayhem.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you might be walking in the door as that show's getting started.
That's happened a couple of times. It happened this week, actually.
Yeah.
No. And if work goes late that night, it just it kind of depends on how things go. So I don't do a ton of streaming in the main part of the week. Most of it's on the weekends. Um, and then sometimes in the middle of the damn night when I can't sleep or I just get an itch or whatever, I'll do like a game stream or a little solo thing. Although I haven't done one of those in months, but it is what it is. The rest of the time, I'm offline. I'm doing other things, but.
So you brought up the Late Night Mayhem that we do on Tuesdays together, and that was actually, I believe, that was how I met you. This was a few months ago before it became like a regular Tuesday thing, I want to say, and he was just kind of doing it whenever it fit in. And we ended up hanging out afterwards for a while, and I don't remember how this came up exactly, but you said that you said something along the lines, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that it is
Man, I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
Okay. But you said that it is impossible for a person to exist without faith. Like you cannot not have faith.
I think what I said was because I think I remember what you're talking about now. Was that I think that faith is a necessary thing to be a whole person.
Okay. So without faith of some sort.
Yeah. It's sort of like the glue that keeps us from going mad.
So I'm thinking. So I've been, if you can't tell, I've been thinking about this ever since this came up. I don't know if anyone is ever without some sort of faith. I don't think it's possible to not have faith in something. Whatever that something is. Like, I'm not saying a religious faith or something. I think people just put faith into a lot of shit. Like, especially nowadays, like, the internet has only proven how little we all know about everything, right?
Right.
And because of that, it requires a lot of faith to live in this world.
And as a matter of fact, that is true. I think that it is possible to be faithless, but I don't think that that's a healthy state. I think that it's rare, and that when it does happen, it's like the people that you get who are just like there's no light behind their eyes. They've got no drive, whether they get up in the morning or they just lay in bed and let themselves die is really up to the whims of fate and not so much them. They just there's nothing.
That might be something behind, because to think about like the idea of having just zero faith in anything at all probably has a lot of depression involved in it.
I think that it probably is a cause of some depression, but it's and like I said, I don't think it's a common thing, but just people become sort of zombies. They lose the will to anything. Something without that faith, something breaks inside us.
Yeah, um,
If that makes sense.
yeah, I think like also, no, I don't want to conflate the two because it would be very easy to conflate faith and purpose. Um, as I'm trying here to word what I want to say, because I think without a faith in it, whatever it is that you need faith in, you might lack drive.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the basic the difference is because you're right. Purpose is a separate thing. Purpose is something that you find, whereas
Mhm.
faith is something that you have. It's like faith comes from within, purpose comes from without.
So now, just real quick here, let's go over. I wanted to show this with you. I was kind of looking into some things about faith and such, and I pulled up the Google definition here. Let me zoom in. So this is just the straight up Oxford Languages definition. Faith, noun, complete trust or confidence in someone or something. I think that's pretty agreeable by most everyone.
Hmm.
And then the example is this restores one faith in politicians.
That
I
seems like an off the cuff remark that they're using to justify the definition, but sure.
yeah, I just find that just so obvious of the state of society, how everything is so wrapped around politics. And maybe that's just me and the life that I live and the things that I do and everything, and that's and how I see that and everything. But I don't think that I'm a one off in that case.
No, not at all. Because you could easily replace the word politicians with people, and the sentence would still hold up. It would still explain the definition. It
Yeah,
wasn't necessary to go with politicians. There are a number of things you could plug in there in place of that word.
this restores one's faith in the team. This restores one faith in my friend or whatever. I don't know.
Right. But I would also point out though that while you could replace the word politicians with practically anything, if you try to replace the word faith in that sentence, it completely changes the sentence.
Uh, this restores one's confidence in politicians.
Mhm.
It's not as so I'd say it's kind of the same definition, but it's not as potent a statement.
Yeah. It loses something.
Yeah. And then now this is what I find interesting is that the second definition is the strong belief in God or the doctrines of religions based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. Um, now that last bit actually, wow. Based on
Yeah, that's this was written by an atheist.
I would say so. Like, whoa. Why'd you even have to go there?
Here's the thing. Like when somebody whoever wrote this down, right, obviously has some kind of resentment against any sort of supernatural belief, which is fine, whatever. But when you're writing a dictionary, man, you should be as objective as you possibly can about it. And that is not an objective statement. That
Yeah,
is that is
this
a
word right
statement
here
of
kind of
belief right there.
yeah. Uh Also, what I find interesting is that they put the second definition. Now, I was raised in the church and everything, so when obviously I was taught about faith. The first time I heard about faith was, faith in God and all of that.
Mhm.
So for me, I would feel that that would naturally be the first definition because that's where I feel most people have probably heard of faith in context the first time was according to believing in God and just that unwavering trust and uh just complete belief into this God figure, right?
Mhm.
I feel like that's a bigger faith than the first definition with faith in whatever thing on this planet.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think so. I think there's probably degrees, I don't know that, like, because you can have faith in little things. Like, I have faith my car will start. It's freezing outside, but I have faith that my car will start, right? You can have faith in little things like that. But there's a difference between that and like capital F faith,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
And that's why they had to split it up into two
Mhm.
definitions. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, I just thought that they had to use the politicians in the first example, and that the God faith came second, and then it really, really like
It kind of mocks it.
stepping all over itself. Yeah, based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. And now I don't want to. In church, they're all like, yeah, faith is blind. They call it blind faith, right?
Mhm.
And that's kind of what they're pointing out, is what they're trying to point out here.
Right, but they're conflating blind faith with, faith in general, and I kind of get where they're going with that, but at the same time, this was clearly somebody who had something to say about it. This wasn't
It's
somebody who,
it's
you
very
know,
derogatory.
yeah. And it's fine if that's your thing, but as far as I'm concerned, that's even that statement right there, even with like, clearly atheist bias in that writing, I would say that the belief that there is no supreme being still requires an inordinate amount of faith.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And that's kind of, so that almost brings up something else here that I've got. Uh, when did the so this I came across this clip. Uh, Melanie Back posted this a couple weeks after we had originally had this conversation. And I
Mhm.
don't know, if you like, do you feel comfortable sharing what you shared with me that evening as far as your faith and all of that stuff?
Yeah, we've talked about it. I talk about it some on my channel.
So yeah, let's get into that, because that's very different. And I would like to know more. So you are you I want to say the term used is polytheistic.
Yes.
What is that?
Polytheistic refers to the belief in multiple deities. And the I guess the best way to put that is that I believe in all of the gods. I believe in them as actual beings. I believe that they exist somewhere.
So what I, I want to say, this is exactly what happened to me the last time we were talking about this. Is I picture uh Supernatural in that Bates Hotel type place, and all the
Yeah,
gods are there.
you could kind of put it that way. I don't think that it's quite that mundane,
Right. But like,
but
but like all of them in one place. You've got the Vikings, you've got the Hindus, like you
yeah, I
all of
don't I don't think that they necessarily even exist in one place. The way I look at it, and I'm a little there are some heathens or pagans or whatever that would probably agree with me, and some who absolutely would not, because we're just as divided as everybody else. There's no
right.
like one pagan path. It doesn't work like that. You pretty much you find your path, and you basically try to figure out how things work on your own. And sometimes you've got people who join you on that path, and sometimes you're out there alone, and it's awesome. And by awesome, I'm being sarcastic. Yeah, but as far as I can tell, like, mankind has always believed in gods, right?
Hmm.
And I think that if you look hard enough, you can find that there's certainly something that we're interacting with out there. And so I'm thinking that there are gods, that all of these gods exist, because I've also noticed that all of them say, "I'm the top dog, worship me, screw
Hmm.
everybody else."
Yep.
Every single one of them says that. And so I'm thinking that it's a higher order of species than us. But I don't think they necessarily exist in all the same place. One of the things we talk about in some pagan faiths is like out of body experiences or astral travel and that sort of thing. Which, by the way, I don't recommend. It's a headache, but it's But the point is that if there are other planes of existence that we can access, and there are probably other planes of existence that we cannot.
Hmm.
And my feeling would be that if there are heavens and there are hells, which I would describe at the basic level as places where gods reside and places where not nice things reside, um, then it stands to reason that there would be more than one. And so if there's more than one God, why wouldn't there be more than one heaven realm? I
Yeah,
just think of them as separate,
I
other
think
worlds.
maybe this is oversimplifying, but multidimensional.
Yeah, to put it in terms like that, yeah, it's a bit string theory of me. Um, you know, just a little bit, but the way I look at it is that we exist in what we call the prime material plane, which is the universe that we inhabit. It's very physical, it's very real, it's very three
Uh-huh.
dimensional, and as far as we can tell, it is unending.
Unending.
And if there's one universe that we know we occupy at the very least, it stands to reason that there may be more.
Yeah, I'm completely open to all of these ideas because
Mhm,
for me, I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Like I was raised Christian. In
mhm.
high school, I played in like 6 praise and worship services over the weekend. Like very much in the church. I I'm not atheist by any means. I
Mm.
say I'm agnostic, and that has so many different everyone has so many different ideas of what that word means. And for me, it means I believe that there is a damn good possibility that there is some other higher power out there than
Yeah.
us.
Not to boil that down to the simplest possible term, but agnostic, as far as I'm concerned, means I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And but like I am completely open to that idea. As a matter, I am
Mhm.
more into the possibility that there's something greater than human beings than I am that there's nothing out there at all.
Yeah. Well, we know for a fact there are beings within the universe that we inhabit that are lesser than us. Lesser in terms of complexity, lesser in terms of ability to cognitively think. I mean, look at an amoeba, it doesn't even have a nervous system,
Right. Right.
right? It's got the single cell. Like, we know there are things that are less complex and less, uh, for lack of a better word, not to sound all uh, organism supremacist about it, but they're lesser than, and we
The
know
weaker
that we can see
species.
them. And so, who's to say that there aren't things that look at us the same way that we look at an amoeba? I mean, how does an amoeba even know we're here? Can it perceive us?
Yeah, that's almost like the Men in Black marble thing.
Yeah, kind of. Worlds within worlds,
Yeah.
or without, rather. And so, yeah, I look at that, and I think about the 3,000 gods, 3,000 plus gods of the Hindus alone, right? And I'm just
Jesus.
like, yeah, I mean, sure, why not?
Yeah.
There are many pantheons. They're all extensive. They don't really seem to overlap, which is why I'm kind of leaning towards the multiple, heaven realm kind of scenario, is because they don't seem to or overlap or interact with each other outside of their followers.
Th- th- That's gonna that kind of makes a lot of sense to me too. Like I've never considered like you hear about the 7 layers of levels of hell or whatever.
Mhm.
But you never really think of like the different levels of heaven. Well, maybe outside of like some weird religions out there, like the Jehovah's Witness or something that I think that have some sort of hierarchical
The
heaven
Mormons have a
creation.
have a tier, yeah,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
tier
That
ranking.
to me, that's just weird. But like the idea that just different kinds of heavens out there, because for me, I don't take heed to heaven or hell. As a matter of fact, if there is a hell, I think we're pretty damn near close to it here.
Mhm,
Um, and that's because of it, I've been kind of developing this idea, and it's so they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
mhm.
And a very common phrase about this world and this life is history repeats itself.
Yeah, or as the Mormons would put it, I think in the Pearl of Great Price, which is one of their books, all of this has happened before, and all of this will happen again. Which
Okay.
Battlestar Galactica stole, by the way, because Gary Larson, the creator of Battlestar Galactica, was a Mormon.
Okay. I was. And there's been other things that have done that. I want to say
Not
recent. So
Gary Larson.
I haven't seen the end, but I hear Attack on Titan kind of does the same thing at the end of that.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's what Dermy was saying the other day. I haven't watched Attack on Titan. I don't do a lot of anime, so
Yeah, I watched about a season during COVID and never went back.
yeah.
Um. So
So
now you've got you have. Would you say you have faith in all of these gods?
I would say I have faith in their existence.
Okay.
Absolutely. Um, the other thing that kind of sets me a little bit apart from most others the more polytheistic path is that I don't worship these fuckers.
Okay.
I when I said earlier that I see them as sort of a higher order in terms of like scientific, ideas. I mean exactly that. I don't see them as necessarily better than us. I see them as bigger
Uh huh.
than us, but not necessarily better. And
Well, I mean, some of them, according to the stories, did some nasty shit.
yeah, they all did. At some
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
there's always some, and I mean, the Greek pantheon alone, their gods are every bit as jealous and callow and petty as humans are, but to the nth degree because they're gods,
Mhm.
and
But
everything's
that's
bigger with them.
what are the
you know,
chances that that's just an excuse?
I think that that's probably. I mean, if you were a god, you wouldn't have to justify yourself, would you?
What
And
makes
Zeus
you a
doesn't.
what makes you a god?
Well, nothing makes me one. Uh, you know, but yeah, that does beg another question too. It's like, did the gods come before us, or did we create them as a need, as something that we needed to place our faith towards? Because
Mhm.
again, like I said, I think faith is absolutely necessary to the human condition. Um, I don't know about a creator, man. I don't know that there is such a thing. That's above my pay grade. I think that if there is such a being who created everything, then by definition, that's what he or she or it is a creator. And if you were
Right.
a creator, why would you stop creating, right? So, like, as far as I'm concerned, if there is one, it made this place and it moved on to make other places. And then these
Right.
gods who were lesser than a creator but greater than man moved in and took credit for it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm just seeing supernatural running through my mind. We've got Chuck and Odin and all of them. Um
I
and
try not to think about Supernatural too much because it's irritating to me how much that show parallels stuff that I came up with after decades of soul searching and thinking about it. But whatever. Fuck you, Supernatural. Just saying.
it doesn't help that I not like somewhat recently I've been rewatching it.
Mhm.
So that's all there. And it's also just one of my favorite shows. I love Sam and Dean.
Sure, sure. I think they oversimplify that though. Like, I don't think that you can just walk up to an old, wood god and stab him with a, piece of
Yeah,
oak or whatever, and he
right.
dies. Or you're just gonna piss him off, if anything.
Yeah. It's just supposed to be a monster of the week show.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
that's
They really watered that shit down. But
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah. But you know
yeah.
what? So like I watched it. I watched it religiously when it first came out, right? For like the first two seasons, and then kind of fell off. Didn't get back into it until there was about 3 or 4 seasons left. And I was surprised how much more gore they added to what was a CW show.
Mhm.
I was like, wow, that has gone up in many levels that I never anticipated.
Yeah, yeah. And in one of the earlier CW shows, right after the WB merged with UPN.
Yes, yes, it was one of the first ones with the Smallville and everything.
Smallville, One Tree Hill. There was a couple of others, but they only had like a handful of shows at the time.
Yeah,
And then
that
then
was
Greg
that was
Berlanti happened.
that was back when I didn't have cable. Netflix wasn't a thing. Like,
Mhm.
yeah. um,
Yeah.
damn, I had a question and I totally forgot it was. So you mentioned how you're not worshiping these things, right? And
Not actively. I have friends who are like, "Well, everybody worships something, dude. You worship something. You have a god that you just don't know." It's like money or whatever. And it's like I don't see it that way, but all right. But if there is something that extracts worship from me, then I don't know what it is.
yeah, so that kind of brings up this clip here. Melody Mack posted this of Mr. Brand here back in September.
Hmm.
And let me know if you can hear this.
When it says in the Old Testament, worship.
Yes,
Did
we
you hear
can.
that?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll start.
When it says in the Old Testament, worship no other gods than me, the implication I offer is that we are a species that worships. And if you do not access the divine, you will worship the mundial, you will worship the profane, you will worship your own identity, you will worship your belongings, you will worship the template laid before you by a culture that but gets you distracted and relatively dumb. When
Okay, so what he's talking about here, and obviously more eloquently than I, is that faith needs a direction.
So
It requires a direction, and if you don't give it one, it will find one.
that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, is he using worship in exchange for faith?
I think so. Yeah,
I
I think so,
think
and I
so
think
as well.
I think that's a distinction that most Abrahamics don't make the difference between. They don't see. I see worship as an action,
You know
whereas
what?
I see faith as a state of being.
For fun, let's look up the definition of worship.
Yeah. But I think the man's got a point. He does got a point. But I'd also like to just real quick, when in the Bible and specifically in the Ten Commandments, it says, "I am the Lord thy God; thou shalt have no other gods before me." Nowhere does it mention that there aren't other gods.
Right. Right.
It just says, "Put me first above all others."
yeah, and then another thing he says is put your faith in me and not in man.
Hmm.
Um
Yeah, because I mean, as we all know, men are fallible and men are weak and men are prone to corruption.
yeah. And also according to the Bible itself, this God that the Bible is written about is a jealous God.
Yeah. It's funny, and as far as like, so I do believe in all the gods, but I also believe that the God of Abraham, which is worshipped by three different faiths,
Mm-hmm.
is the same dude. I don't believe that they're different gods. I think it's one God who happens to be running like three schemes at the same time.
Well, there's a lot of lore to that.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, it's all over the news today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, listen, man. I mean, I hang out with Christians and Jews and Muslims, so
Right. Yeah,
it's.
yeah. You do because I know who you stream with, and you're absolutely right. Yeah, welcome to America, and no
Mhm.
one has had a problem with it.
Yeah, no, not at all. So it is what it. And as far as I can tell, all of that has to do with piss poor interpretation. All of the divisions have to do with piss poor interpretations by men. I don't think that particular God has ever concealed who and what he is.
So I know I have a lot of now my subscribers don't normally watch my live streams, but I know I have a lot of really fundamental Christian subscribers on this channel.
Mhm.
Um, and and I find it they're not going to like what I'm about to say. I find it difficult to believe that the Bible has remained exactly what it's been throughout history. You know what I mean?
It hasn't.
No, it hasn't. As a matter of fact, I believe there's records of King James actually changing shit himself.
There are records of many people changing things long before King James came along. Yeah. You should check out, look up the Nicene Creed at some point.
The what?
The Nicene Creed.
How do you spell that?
Essentially, it was a group of religious leaders about 400 years after Christ who decided to get together and basically curated what is in the Bible, what got left in, what got left out, what got changed at a
Okay.
big old conference. And yeah, so like ever since then, this was before the formation of the complete formation of the Roman Catholic Church. Like there were still splinter churches around and all that stuff, and before they had completely taken over, and they weren't called like the Catholic Church at the time. That came later, still under Roman rule, as a matter of fact. And it was just basically a confluence of powerful religious leaders who decided what the faithful got to know. And that happened well before King James. What's that?
Repeat that last statement. It was what the
faithful were allowed to know.
Right.
Keep in mind,
essentially.
Yeah, well, keep in mind your average believer was also illiterate at this time.
Very true.
So they had to believe whoever could read the book could pretty much say anything, and your average believer had to just trust that they were telling them the truth, which, by the way, is an act of faith.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. There's so many things that just require faith. Like your example of having faith that your car is going to turn on. I remember the days when I didn't have faith my car was going to turn on. I'm sure everyone's been through that point in their life. But yeah, there is a lot of things out there. And like I was saying, the internet just proves how little we all know and how much we actually have to operate in faith.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to try and figure out a way to not require faith, but use it intentionally. Does that make any sense?
As like a resource?
Maybe just be more aware of when it's faith that's guiding decisions as opposed to actually knowing.
I think you're going to have a difficult time separating that from moving through life.
I think so too.
Because when you step off a curb to cross the street, you're having faith that them drivers ain't going to run you over, but you don't necessarily put it in those terms.
Well, but now I can also step off the curb and be fully aware that there isn't a single car on the street anywhere.
Sure. That is possible. But I think that like all the little things that we do, all of the little, like I'm going to step over this puddle and have faith that I won't fall into it. I'm going to
Well, another example of stepping off the curb is you can have faith that you're going to step off this curb and your ankle's not going to snap.
Yeah, we have an inordinate amount of trust that things are going to go our way, and when they don't, we get real surprised, obviously. But but that's, I think that faith is integral to who and what we are.
Yeah. So having faith in your ankle not snapping versus having faith in a deity are very separate things. Now,
sure, but they stem from the same place.
Right. Do you think it's required for that kind of faith into a deity to actually be channeled into something, say politicians or media, or like, do you think that a person can live without, we'll call it capital F faith, big F faith? Do you think that
Honestly,
that is?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I used to think so when I was younger. I used to think, oh, I can just, not, you know, channel this. But I'm as I get older, I am not sure. I think that there at some point we need to find an outlet for it. We need to find a proper way to channel it, or it, does lead into other things,
Yeah, I
and
think
maybe
that's
they're not the best things for us.
yeah, I think that's kind of what Russell Brand was getting to.
Hmm.
And that it's like if you don't put it into something meaningful, you're going to put it into something that is essentially going to hurt you and
Right.
make you like not like physically hurt you, but possibly help you just waste your life away and become a miserable person.
Right. That and I look at it kind of like in the same way that you would look at excess energy, right? You got a bunch of excess energy and you don't have anywhere for that excess energy to go. It's gonna do its own thing. It's gonna be energy. It never stops being energy. It can't not be energy. But if you give it a direction, if you channel it properly, it can become something, or power something, or what have you, great. It could also turn out really, really badly, and all it just depends on how you, I guess, channel it. In the same way that electricity does. Electricity can power a city. It can also kill you.
Yeah,
It's capable of both things, and if it's channeled improperly, it's definitely going to kill somebody. But if properly channeled, you could power a city.
that is an interesting analogy to the idled hands thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, if you don't have something to channel your energy, you usually end up doing terrible things.
Yeah, and I think that's an incomplete analogy, but it's probably the best I got philosophically on that. Aside from, it's a bit like fire as well, which will dwindle if you don't feed it.
Right. Oh, I was like, you
Yeah,
made another
but I'm
analogy
sort of
to
I'm sort of mixing metaphors here.
you
So,
both.
like,
So you said that, and I was like, wait, you made another analogy to fire before, and I
mhm,
remembered I was listening to your conversation about the gin.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, and it's like, again, I'm mixing metaphors, and this is an imperfect way to talk about it. I'm not sure that I have a perfect way to describe all of this stuff. This is like, I'm 43 years old and I'm still figuring shit out, man.
yeah, yeah. No, we don't need no perfection. That's what's great about these conversations is we can figure it
Mhm.
out like as we go.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I think that, yeah, it's as we were saying there, it's got to be channeled properly, but in order for it to remain, you know, healthy, not you gotta feed it a little bit too. You can't just like let it, cage it up and let it die. If you do
Right.
that, you can end up like one of those zombie people I was talking about earlier. Just kind of dead inside and
If you,
directionless and
yeah,
just existing for the sake of existing with no purpose.
if you had to guess, what do you, what would you say the percentage of the American populations are running on that zombie energy?
Honestly, I think it's a lot higher than it used to be, but I still don't think that it's um, as prevalent as like, I could make an offhanded, you know, uh, remark about that and just say like, oh yeah, it's all the people that I disagree with or whatever. But I don't think
Right.
that's the case. I think it's probably a lot more rare than that, but it's more prevalent now than it has been. So I don't really have a percentage though.
Right. No, that was an unfair question coming up with a percentage like that because there's also the whole thing about like uh, the internet makes all
Mm,
perception totally fucking whacked. Um, but like
yeah.
I think that I think there's a lot of lack of putting faith into a good use.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that with a lot of the youth, especially in
Yeah.
in, in America, is that they were raised by directionless parents, and those directionless parents were, rebelling for whatever reason, or they were raised by, less directionless, but still kind of, Gen X was the don't give a fuck generation. I'm Gen X.
Mhm.
And, the millennials came after us, and
You're
it's like
barely
each
Gen X.
success. I know I'm barely Gen X, but I am
Because
Gen
I'm
X.
technically a millennial and I'm 3 years younger than you.
Yeah. No, I'm one of the last of the Gen Xers, but
Bastard.
but it is, there's and there's some overlap right there at the changing of the generations where, kids who were raised like on either side of that cutoff date were raised practically the same anyway. But as you go along, it's like each generation gives less of a fuck about stuff. And as that happens, then you end up with a bunch of angry kids who have all this pent up energy and all this pent up, for lack of a better word, faith with nowhere to go, and they have no idea what to do with it. And I think it's very much the idle hands. It's like they're trying to create something to solve. They're trying to make a
Yeah.
channel for their energy, for their faith, because they don't have any idea what to do with it because they were not taught what to do with it. And the problem is that because they're directionless, it's turning out horribly for everybody. They brought
Could this,
racism back for Christ's sake.
could this
You know?
be what brought on first world problems?
Yeah,
Needing
could be.
like the lack of um it's so hard to not conflate faith and direction in the same thing
Mhm.
because they're heavily related, I think. But like not believing in the lack of not being able to believe in something made it that you needed to create problems.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's one thing that you know, organized religion has always been useful for is for giving people a purpose and giving people
Yeah.
a guide by which to live. And it's not always worked out great, but generally speaking, if you remove that structure, if you remove that path, that channel, and you're just like, oh, find your own way, right? It's not going to work out great. you know
Yeah. Yeah. That there was a time where definitely the fire and brimstone was
Mhm.
very but was it worked.
Well, even not so much the fire and brimstone, just the, hey, let's be good to each other. Let's agree to abide by these basic concepts of morality and of ethics and of neighborliness. Like I'm not even talking as far back as like the Middle Ages, just just looking at the 50s and 60s. And yeah, there were problems and a lot of them were swept under the rug, but there was also a certain level of decorum that came with so many of the citizens of this country being involved in their churches because there's communities that keep you in line. People, that's why those communities exist, is to keep each other on what they call the straight and narrow. And I'm not saying that I necessarily buy what they're believing in. I just think that is something to be said for organized religion and maintaining a stable society.
Hmm. There's a lot of tinfoily directions you could go from there.
Hmm.
With because you're right, there was definitely more of a uh, community when
Hmm.
church was more prevalent. Um, and there's
Yeah, and I mean like real community, not like the commie definition.
right,
You
right,
know,
no, no, no. Your neighbors. Look, no one
Mhm.
talks to their neighbors now.
I don't trust my neighbors not to break into my house, man.
So I live in a super tiny little. I live in like this super tiny little gated community full of duplexes. Right, it's nothing fancy. We just have
Mhm.
gates, and there's like maybe 60 units in this. Right, so that's like a total of 30 buildings. Um, and I don't know a single soul here except for the woman who happened to move down the street, who's my dad's girlfriend. And I've lived here for 7 or 8 years now. Now that okay, so that's not entirely true. I also know my next door neighbor, but that's because they're my landlord and they're only here 3 months out of the year.
Yeah.
But
And you
like,
don't do you find that that's sad?
I hate it. I don't like it.
Mhm.
And you know what's even worse is like the vast majority. I live in a part of town. I did this very intentionally, where all the old people live. Um, and
Yeah.
there's a few where like if I'm like driving down the street and they're out walking with their dog, we'll wave and stuff and do that every time. But other than that, I haven't talked to a single soul here.
And that's a shame too, because I mean, like, it's, so when I was younger, I used to work at a recreational facility for a city in another state, and it was a senior center, so they had like classes and dances and that kind of thing, usually for senior citizens. Senior citizens put up most of the funding for the place. We did other stuff too. We rented out ballrooms to pretty much anybody who could pay and all that stuff. But one of the things that I learned there, and I'm sure people who worked in retirement communities can probably relate to this too. Was that some of the most interesting people in the world are the ones we look at who are, struggling down the street with a walker going like, oh, that's so sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe take a moment to talk to those people, get to know them a little bit, learn about their life and their history. You find some fascinating stuff. They, and I mean, because they've lived, they didn't
Yeah,
get to
yeah,
be
yeah,
old by just existing, and
yeah.
and I think that it's sad that when we just we treat them as a burden and as a nuisance and all that stuff, and
Well,
that's I think we're missing out by not connecting with them.
I will agree with you, but I think a lot of them, now not all of them, but I think they're not. The older generation's not what they used to be from what I remember when I was a kid.
Well, when you were a kid, that older generation is long gone.
Right, right. Well, yeah, that's true. Because like my grandparents are still around, but they're just now old.
Mhm.
They're it's not quite the same because they seem a little more standoffish than they used to be. I'm the kind
Yeah.
of person that like I used to go to the grocery store and put in the earplugs, the headphones. I don't do that anymore. I was like, you know what? I'm actually much more sociable than this. And if something was to happen at the grocery store where I need to talk to somebody, like, you know, I need to be available.
Mhm.
I can't and ever since that I don't like the headphones things at the grocery store because it's like you are removing yourself from society while being in society, I feel.
Yeah, to a degree, yeah.
Yeah. And so like I'll approach somebody if like, like if I see they may I'm 6'7", I'll grab shit off the top shelf. Um
Shit, man, you're 2 inches taller than me.
but I don't feel like I'm thinking of this one particularly older gentleman, and he's not he's like maybe 60. Not very approachable. But like we wave, and then we
Mhm.
keep it at that, and like that's just the thing. Um but now like the direction I was going with this originally was like the church has essentially been removed from communities.
Yes.
Uh and like I even I have a church that's like 5 minutes walking distance from my house,
Mhm.
and I don't ever see them doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I live in you know, the high plains, and out here there's a church every, yeah, like you can't swing a dead cat without hitting at least one.
Yeah.
Um, but you're right. Like most of them, there's not a lot of activity there, you know, um, except for an hour on Sundays or funerals and occasionally weddings.
You know what? I don't think I even saw anything for Halloween this year. At
Hmm.
so like I live in the just on the other side of the fence of this community is literally a little Christian church. Um, parking lot of like maybe 30 spots. Uh and I didn't see any signs for Halloween. I didn't see anything going on there. And I know previously they did do stuff. So I don't know. Maybe they're going out of business. This particular church is going out of business or something, but I never see anything happening there. I almost
Yeah,
want
it could be that. It could be a shift in leadership. I know there's been a rise lately in Christian leaders talking about how Halloween is sinful and of the devil and all that shit, and we shouldn't be practicing it, which is, it's fine because I mean it's a bastardized, watered down festival from another faith that was wiped out long ago. So, I mean, I get
right.
it, but
Well,
whatever.
But that could be another show entirely about how
Yeah.
all of these holidays are something else
Right,
original.
right. But so it may be as simple as that. It may just be like they're pulling back on holidays that aren't specifically
That's
about
so
their
that's
religion.
possible. I remember growing up, we went to the church for Halloween, and they didn't call it Halloween, they didn't call it trick or treating, they called it the Harvest Festival, right?
Mhm.
Which going back on that now, it's like, did you really avoid all the things you were trying to avoid when you did that? Like,
Yeah. So about that, Samhain was also a harvest festival, except the harvest was souls.
yeah. But they tried to make it so that it wasn't the kids could dress up, but it wasn't like all about like the monsters and all of that stuff,
Mhm.
like the devil and all of that. Um, so I could see it going either way. And then eventually, as a kid, like my mom was like, "Screw this, we're not doing this anymore. We're just going to go to the movies," and I was totally fine with that. That's how I saw The
Mhm.
Sandlot. Um,
Yeah, I kind of get that. My mother's Mormon. I was raised with them, and they do a thing every year called Trunk or Treat, which has since spread out to other faiths and stuff. But they
yeah, that's
basically
what they
invented
used to
that.
do over there
Yeah,
down the street from me.
and the idea is that these kids are going to go out on Halloween and they're going to be knocking on strangers' doors asking for freaking candy and we're trusting that they're going to be okay. And for decades they were,
Yeah.
um, but that started in late '80s. People really stopped trusting their neighbors around especially around their kids.
Hmm.
And so the trunk or treat thing came about as a way for kids to still enjoy Halloween, but do it in a place with adults they knew that was a safe communal kind of thing. So the people would show up and they'd fill up the parking lot with their cars, and then they'd decorate their trunks and open them up and all that stuff. And kind of kids would just go around the parking lot from car to car to car. And these are all people that they saw every week that they knew from church. Um, and so the idea was that you could be sure that anything that your kid got from a trunk at that event wasn't going to harm them.
Was there something that happened that might have triggered all of this? I mean, I was really young at that time.
Yeah, there were a few scares, some of it which turned out to be hoaxes, but people just never really recovered from them because it blew up into this whole thing.
Hmm.
There was a scandal about razor blades in candy apples that I don't believe actually happened, or if it did, it was very isolated. But people started really worrying about that sort of thing. Um, you know, uh, And I think there have been a few incidences where pieces of candy had been injected with something like bleach or antifreeze, and that kind
Uh-huh.
of thing. There have been attempts to harm, but I think for the most part they've been isolated. But we as a society never really got back to trusting our
Yeah.
neighbors over that.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that, but I don't ever remember if any of that was actually true.
Well, that's the thing is like nobody knows.
Yeah.
It was all telephone game, word of mouth. And the next thing you know, it becomes something bigger than it may have initially been. It might have been that somebody just got a bad batch of something and somebody got a tummy
Yeah.
ache over it, and then it just blew up over there. But
Yeah.
like the it took hold of the public's imagination that there were these evil people out there who would do anything to harm, any kids that came across. And I think that that's certainly possible. There probably are people out there like that, but I don't think it's every house on the
Yeah, no,
street.
it's not even close to 1%. It's such a small, tiny percentage of
Yeah.
people.
The
Um,
problem is, though, is that if you know you can't trust even one, right? Then you have to take it you just can't risk trusting any of them. It's like the same reason that the whole Koof thing really screwed with people's faith in the medical profession. I mean, not that like let's be
yes.
honest, the whole litigation thing and the malpractice thing's been around for a while, but in this particular case, like I don't know what's in any given shot that I'm going to be receiving, right? And I may have a great doctor who really believes in helping people and who's really doing their level best to make sure that I'm as healthy as possible, right? But I can't trust that, because if I can't trust one of them, I can't trust any of them.
Yeah.
I know there are good doctors. I know for a fact there
Right.
are good doctors, but I
Right. They're good
can't
doctors,
take
but
that
they're
chance.
they're so few and far between, I feel.
Yeah, and it's so and I think that same thing applies with neighbors and candy and Halloween and all that.
Mhm.
Is that we know there are good people, and probably the vast majority of them are good people. But the fact is that we know that there are also a handful of people who have ill will, and I cannot take that chance that
Right.
this person
Yeah.
might be one of them.
Yeah, and then that's what he started seeing, like, they start saying, only wrapped candies, no, like,
Mhm.
homemade goods and all that stuff, which I kinda wished I was alive to go trick-or-treating in the '60s and the '70s to experience that, because that sounds way better than the shit that they handed out, like,
Yeah.
uh, Mr. Goodbar's fine, but
I wonder too if there might have been some of that started by like candy and sugar companies. Saying like, "Yeah,
Oh,
no more homemade stuff. It's not good. You can't trust it, but you can trust our wrapped candies." And
okay.
I wonder if there was some
Yeah,
marketing shit behind that
big
too.
sugars in it. Okay,
Yeah.
I like it.
Just a random thought that it just occurred to me just now. It's like, you know
You know
what?
what?
We
I
know they've been lying about other stuff.
I wouldn't put it past at least a little bit of perpetuation from them.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, let's not act like the media's been on the up and up this whole fucking time until 3 years ago, right? Like
Right.
like let's not that's not the case at all. Kind of,
Yeah.
and like for me, the whole I wasn't into the whole medical thing. A lot of the information out there well before 2020. Uh, you haven't been able to file a lawsuit against one of them poke manufacturers for a very long time.
Yeah.
That wasn't not a recent thing.
And that's, like you bring up an interesting point about, like, oh, the media's only recently started lying to us, which seems to be a perception for a lot of younger viewers. That's that's not how that works. See, once you find out that your trust has been broken, then you have to question everything that came before. You can't just trust they were telling you the truth and then all of a sudden, in
Yeah.
unison, just decided to lie through their fucking teeth one day. That's not how that works. There's
Today's the
usually a
day,
buildup.
guys. Today's the day.
Yeah.
That could
Yeah.
be a good someone Ryan Long or someone needs to make a skit about that.
That would be pretty funny. Yeah. But there's another thing. Like, we took it for granted. We took it on faith, kind of to tie
Yeah.
it back in,
Yeah.
that the media was telling us the truth for decades.
Yeah.
Decades.
Forever.
Walter Cronkite was the go-to man, for decades. We believed every word that came out of their mouths. As a people, obviously there's
Yeah.
outliers who never
Yeah,
believed
yeah.
anything, but yeah, but as a people, we had faith that they were being honest and forthright with us as a people. And as it turns out, that may never have been the case,
Yeah,
which is
I
extremely demoralizing.
it was always I I am of the camp that it was always you need to know what we think you need to know.
Mhm.
And that's why they hate the internet. They absolutely despise the internet.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's why we call them the MSM, because they are not the only media out there now.
yes, exactly. And they hate the internet because they're dying. But also the governments hate the internet because you could get real information. We've got what is she? She's the governor of New York trying to
For
implement
now,
the
yeah.
Ministry of Truth for K through 12 graders. Um,
Yeah, yeah. For
yeah,
for now, you can get the real truth in the United States, but you do have to dig through a lot of shit to get to it, though, because the internet's also full of people who will say anything for any reason. Uh,
yes,
you
yes, there
know,
is so much of that too. Like, and you
and
actually
sometimes
have to
satire
go
is,
and
yeah,
I love that Babylon Bee had to create, not the bee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, but you know, I mean, what we're looking at, that's actually one of the main topics for this afternoon's show over on my channel is
Oh,
the recent FCC decision about the internet in America, and how that's going to fuck everybody.
it is. I don't know how much you remember about Obama. Well, you're a little older than me, so you'll
Mhm.
remember stuff. But it just screams of all the net neutrality bullshit that they were trying to push at the end of his reign.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing. They are taking control of the internet, and unless somebody sues this and takes this to the Supreme Court, it's over. The internet that we know right now will not be the same
Mhm.
12 months from now if they don't fix
No,
this.
no, not at all. And that's write your congressman, people. You know, make your voice heard, because if you don't do it now, you may never.
I've got a
Um,
based ass congressman.
yeah,
He's the one always voting by himself. It
right.
sucks, but
We have Hagman, who replaced Liz Cheney.
okay.
No,
Hopefully that's a step up. I mean, I wouldn't think that'd be too hard, but
no, she's definitely a step up from the last one. Never trusted Cheney. Just saying. Don't trust him when you go hunting with him. Don't trust him in Congress. Don't trust him in the White House. You know.
I have something bookmarked on Twitter in regards to her that I'm supposed to read later. Something about the J6 stuff.
Yeah, she was um, one of the two Republicans who was on that committee.
Yeah, I have to go back and look at it, but I think she said to not investigate, according to Jim Jordan.
She may have. There's been some stuff come out. She was for a while pushing that they should definitely have these commissions. They should definitely, get to the bottom of stuff and make sure that we can tie this back to, the 45th president and make sure we bury him and all that shit. I mean, yeah, she was definitely on that side. At least on the surface, I think she was on the side of getting rich while ignoring her constituents. Personally,
Her
fun
name's Cheney.
fact about her is that fun fact about her is that the only reason that she was able to claim residency is because her family owns land out by Jackson Hole. She doesn't live here. She's never lived here. She only comes here when she has to beg for votes.
Yeah, isn't there a term for that? I want to say carpetbagger.
Yeah.
It isn't that a lot of them.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if she pops up in Congress again. Maybe through Maryland or Massachusetts or some shit, because I think she actually lives over in that direction. But she won't be coming through Wyoming again. We got sick of her.
You think Massachusetts would elect her?
I don't know. Like I said, it might be Maryland. I don't remember exactly which one it is, but she lives in one of those itty bitty coastal states.
She needs to go away. They all need. I'm gonna shut up.
Yeah, it's probably better that way. I don't want to say anything out of pocket. It's gonna get your channel in trouble, because apparently I can't say shit on my own channel,
Dude. I made a fucking meme of Osama bin Laden on Loki, right? His head on Loki, doing the whole Neil, this is not your proper place thing. And I was making fun of those idiots reading his letter to America.
Yeah.
And YouTube said I was glorifying organized crime.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, I got hit for hate speech yesterday, and from an angle, I can probably see where they got that from, because there's some ugly shit.
Saw
said.
it.
It was all
saw the clip on Rumble today. That shit was funny.
It was just jokes, people.
I know.
So I kind of get where they're going with the hate speech thing. I still think it's bullshit, but I
there's
can make
no
the
such
connection.
thing as hate speech.
Especially in this country, there are no laws against hate speech, because hate speech is covered under the First fucking Amendment. But whatever.
You can't define speech like that. You
No.
can't define speech at all. As soon as you start trying to define speech, you start thought policing.
Hmm. And all that, but organized crime, huh?
Yeah,
That's a. I mean, technically, I guess.
right. I mean, terrorists, but they're kind of organized.
And they're definitely criminals.
Uh-huh.
You know? But it's not like when I think organized crime, I think like the Gambino family.
Right. Yeah. You know,
Or the
prohibition
Bratva.
running liquor shit. Or
Yeah.
well, I mean, the mafia, you know, if I made a video about people
Yeah.
crossing the border with drugs,
Right.
fentanyl.
Yeah, that's I don't know, man. But I think that the last few years have been a collective. I don't know that there's necessarily a cosmic intention behind it, but kind of a test of our faith as a people, and I think that it's broken us.
Oh, um,
It certainly
faith,
separated
is it
us
a
from each
test in
other.
faith of the people, or is it a test in faith of the system?
Well, I think it's the people themselves. Like our faith in our nation has been
Mhm.
shaken, and I think that it maybe broken was the wrong term to use, but I think there's more coming, and I think that for a lot of people, yeah, it will be. I think that at this point in time, a lot of citizens of this country don't have the strongest faith in this
No.
country. And I'm not
Well,
talking about the government. I'm talking about in
right.
this nation, in
Well,
our ability to.
there's a lot. So, and that goes on both sides. I think
Mhm.
there's
Yeah,
a,
yeah, absolutely.
you've got the black pillars, right?
Mhm.
And then you got the commies. And I think those are the people that have no faith in this nation.
Yeah. And I realize, man, I come off like a black pillar a lot. I do realize that it sounds like I am. I don't believe that I am.
I
I
will
think
say
that
I
I'm
did not get that vibe from you
pragmatic.
today.
Yeah.
So when we were originally having this faith conversation, and you said it's like impossible for a person to not have faith in something, and I'm going along, and it's like I do exactly what the Bible tells you not to do. I have
Mhm.
faith, but like they mean when the Bible says to not put your faith in man, they mean like the system. I have
Yeah.
faith in human beings. I have faith in people. I think we are better than this, and I know we can figure out how to do it better. I can't explain it. I just have this undying hope that there's more better people on this planet than there are terrible people. There's going to be some shitty times, and we're eventually going to get to some good times again. And that's just kind
Yeah.
of like the natural process of things.
I think you just illustrated my initial point very well, actually.
Yeah,
You got to have faith, not to get all George Michael on you.
that is the name of the episode.
I promise I have my pants on.
I wanted to make the meme of you on the music video. But I was like, I know YouTube's not gonna like that.
I can take a joke. I can take a joke better than Dermy can take a dick.
And I did have a decision between George Michael and Fred Durst.
Oh, George Michael all the way. If you're gonna go that route, man, go with the OG.
Right. Yeah. So I spent a little bit of time thinking about it, and I was like, if I could mash the two together in some sort of like remix thing, but I don't have those kind of skills. That would have been gold.
DJ Access might.
Possibly. I need to learn how to do that shit. I that's my problem is so like you're supposed to be jack of all trades, master of one.
Yeah,
No.
I'm not a musician. I got no talent or aptitude for that whatsoever. So as far as like mishmashing styles and stuff, like you're looking at the wrong dude, man. I'm just barely learning how to edit my own shit together. So
When it comes to the music, when it comes to like the mashing of the music, I can hear it. I just have no idea how to make it happen.
Yeah, I got nothing. I don't know. So even my thumbnails are not as like I like this thumbnail that you used here.
Dude, this
It's sort of
is
a blood moon over a sea kind of thing. I like that how that looks. Like my most recent thumbnail, which by the way, the reason that the main reason I'm super pissed about that video getting taken down isn't even because of the video itself. It took me like freaking a half hour to edit that video together. Whatever. It
yeah.
took like 3 hours to put that fucking thumbnail together, and I was proud of it. Damn it.
It's on Rumble. It's on
Yeah,
Rumble still. I'm
yeah.
very happy that it's on Rumble because I got to see
I'm
that
happy
before
that
you.
it got uploaded because Rumble's been really touch and go as far as like because I don't upload there directly. I've just been mirroring stuff over to it because
Oh,
I have some issues apparently with being old and being unable to learn new shit. So
well,
I don't
I've heard
do
weird
much with
things
Rumble.
about the Rumble mirroring, so it's
Yeah.
probably not a you problem.
No, I don't think it is, but as far as like directly uploading and all that stuff goes, I haven't been doing a lot of that, and I certainly haven't been streaming to it because the whole new stream key thing every damn time, like it's beyond me. I don't like how they set that up. So I just been using it as a backup, but I also have that video on my hard drive still, so I can upload it again. I'm not gonna YouTube, but I could if I wanted to, and you should know
What
that that's
if
always an option.
what if you just bleeped out the whole fucking thing? Just like a fuck
That's a
you to
thought. I might
YouTube.
maybe I'll stick that back in the editor and take a look at that because that actually could be funnier. And I
Yeah.
say this as somebody who really regrets when like not so much regrets, but I lament the days when South Park used to bleep all the cuss words. They don't anymore, but they used to, and it was actually funnier when it was censored.
Oh, yeah. I remember when they came out with the shit episode,
Hmm.
and because all of a
Yeah,
sudden
and
you could say shit after 9 p.m. or whatever the hell it was.
yeah, and you know when they did their bigger, longer, and uncut movie, nothing was censored in that movie. And it just I think it loses some of its charm without the bleeps every time Cartman says something, and I don't know, I just it was part of the charm of the show for me because you knew they were saying naughty words, but
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from, but also I think that that's kind of what boosted the movie in general was because they
oh,
weren't
yeah.
able to do that. And so it just so for the movie, if they would have kept that in only the movie, I think that would have been more of like an artistic touch as opposed and then now since it's just free game on the TV show. If they would have never
Yeah.
gone past that in the TV show, that would have
Yeah,
made the
and
movie stand out more.
I still think they're funny. I just think that when they swear or they say things that are totally off color that used to be, you know, hidden behind a beep,
Right.
it loses some of the humor just by being out there, like hanging it out there. It's like, okay, your dick's out. Like now that your dick's been out for 20 years and everybody's seen it, it's no longer as entertaining as like, oh, here's a little flash here and there. Did you just see what you think you saw?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just entertainment wise. I just think it would be funnier that way. So there may be something to that. May put that back in the editor and see if I can get away with it a second time.
Yeah. I would just bleep like a whole bunch of it just as a giant fuck you to YouTube.
That might be worth looking into. But yeah. So I don't know. I have faith that YouTube's gonna be a dick.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm curious to see how that turns out because if they end up taking it out down after you bleep everything out, like and there's a lot to bleep out.
Yes, there
There's a
is.
lot to bleep. It almost doesn't stop. Um, I want to say Ryan might have a few clean words, but that's a maybe.
Yeah. It was this particular clip was a little over the top. I just thought it was so fucking funny. Uh
What do you expect with Dermy showing up?
yeah. And that was probably the worst of the stuff that it was said during the course of that live stream. That entire live
Right.
stream is still up on YouTube, by the way. Um
Oh,
yeah. Right now, the only issues it has are copyright claims from Paramount,
yeah.
you know, and oh, and one from Mad TV because Ryan insisted on playing that "You Got Gay" clip.
Okay.
The whole way through. It's like, dude, we're gonna get clipped. We're gonna get clipped, and he's like, no, we'll be fine. I was like, all right, well, guess what? Not only did we get clipped, but they rejected my dispute out of hand. So
How long is that clip?
it's about 3 minutes. It's too long
Oh,
to be playing.
yeah, that's way
Yeah,
too long.
yeah, and we broke it up a little bit, but not enough to. Yeah, it was just like a yeah. So, but and I guess I could go back and just cut that section out because it's just that one little bit. But Fox was not super happy about it. I think it was Fox that still owns the Mad TV stuff, or is it Warner Brothers? I don't remember. Anyway, somebody wasn't happy with us, whereas Paramount is just like flexing their dick, and they know that.
Yeah, yeah. They know. Yeah, they know damn well, especially
Yeah.
with all the Star Trek stuff that's on YouTube in general.
Right, and everything we do is covered under fair use. They just
Yeah,
will, push that boundary as far as it go, and they will only do it on YouTube. By the way, only YouTube.
because YouTube works with them. Because
Hmm.
YouTube's so gross. I'm watching. I'm watching, D-Day Cobra or something, right? And then the next video that pops on is the ACLU video or some shit. I'm like, you motherfuckers, you know damn well I don't want to watch this.
Hmm.
You know, like I don't. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, I
I'm
have
just
curated my feed very carefully.
so yeah. So I you know what? Something happened 5 years ago, 3 4 years ago, and I could just put on one video, right? I'd sit down for work, put on one video, and I wouldn't have to touch it for the next 3 4 hours, and it would just
Hmm.
go, right? I wouldn't have to set up anything, and it would just be perfect. Now I can't. Now autoplay is useless for me.
Yeah, yeah, I've had autoplay turned off for 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't like what they recommend to me half the time. Sometimes it's things that I might want to watch. For instance, one of my favorite things to do on YouTube on my own time is I like watching movie and music reaction channels. And I know that some of
Mhm.
them are bullshit. It's just something that entertains me. I enjoy it, and some of them have personalities that I really enjoy. And so sometimes they'll show me, like it'll autoplay right into one of those videos, usually one I haven't watched. The problem is if
Mhm.
I have not watched one of those on that channel, it's probably because either A, I don't want to watch that one because I didn't like the movie, or B, I haven't seen that movie yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want it spoiled for me, so I've avoided that on purpose. But the YouTube autoplay does not care. It
No,
will
no.
play whatever.
At least it's giving you the same crap.
Yeah. So, well, like I said, I've curated it very, very carefully, and I yelled at it a number of times until it stopped showing. Like, I'm sure, and I don't want to get too much into what she's about, but you know who Pearl Davis is?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so her shorts started coming up in my shorts feed
I'm
when they
sorry.
started pushing shorts real hard. This was a while back, and I clicked on a couple of them because they're usually misleadingly, titled or whatever. And they don't show her face necessarily on them, and I was just like, oh,
Right.
well, that looks interesting, and I click on it. I was like, oh, it's this Pearl Davis chick. Oh, she's saying a thing. All these other people are saying a thing. I was like, all right, whatever. The next thing I know, my algorithm is flooded with that woman. Flooded with it. Took me months to excise her from my feed entirely, and I finally succeeded. And
There's
now it's popping up on fucking Twitter. So
Oh yeah, well that's a little bit out of your control. I mean, you can mute her, but
yeah, but you
even
can't
so.
mute people quote tweeting, or
Uh-huh.
well, you can mute the quote tweets, but you can't mute the like. They'll take screenshots of what she says
Yeah.
and then post
Yeah.
their own post, and it shows up, and I still have to see what she fucking said. it's,
How
it's
do you,
irritating.
here's a question. This is a little off topic here, but how do you feel about the screenshot versus the quote tweet?
I think if it's something like an argument or whatever, and somebody says something out of pocket that they're gonna go back and like delete or whatever like that. Yeah, I take the screenshot just to have it for posterity and all that in
I think you
case you
should
need
do
it.
both in that case.
But yeah, but I don't know. I you see, I'd archive the screenshot and I just quote tweet them. If they block me, then I retweet the quote tweet with the screenshot, because I'm
Yeah.
petty.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It depends. I try not to get into direct conflict with people on Twitter anyway, because
I try
it's
not to stir the shit
unproductive.
either.
Generally, every once in a while, I will get into these weird fucking moods and I'll just start poking bears. But most of the time, I try to stay out of that crap because it doesn't serve them, it doesn't serve me, and it certainly
Yeah.
doesn't serve the average reader.
Yeah. I'm not a shit stirrer when it comes to that kind of shit.
Yeah, I'll fight, but it's like I don't. I try not to seek it out.
Right. And you know what? A quote tweet is almost like that, getting that started, right?
It depends on the context. Yeah, like I'll quote tweet like Horror Amarada is a buddy, and and so when she'll post something, like a lot of times I'll reply directly to her comment, but then I'll quote tweet it with another comment and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so like in that context, I don't think quote tweeting is necessarily like a contentious thing. That's just like, hey, look what my friend said.
Yeah. You could have the agreeable quote tweet and then the non-agreeable quote tweet.
And like 90% of my quote tweets are agreeable unless they're Joe Biden, and then they're usually me calling him like a meat puppet. But,
accurate.
Yeah, I think I just started referring to him as meat puppet one day, and I just never really stopped. But for the most part, even the political stuff these days, like I try to keep up on political events because I work on a political channel, so I have to know some of the stuff. But I try not to engage with it as much, like actively anymore, because I don't want Harry Sisson in my fucking feed.
I know.
I don't want Brooklyn Dad to fight in my feed because that guy's an asshole. Or Lakota Man or fucking man. Lakota Man said one thing that I absolutely
you know what?
agree
That's
with,
a name I'm not familiar with, and I'm not looking.
Yeah. No, don't. No, not unless you want to hear about how all people are basically white people to him, and all white people suck.
Oh.
Yeah, but he did say one thing that I absolutely agree with, 100%. Don't pet the fluffy cows.
The fluffy cats?
Cows.
Oh.
Yeah, don't pet the fluffy cows. Essentially, stay away from the American bison because they will kill you.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, fluffy cows.
We lose 2 to 3 tourists every year because they're like, oh, fluffy cows, and then they get headbutted by the thing.
Where you live.
Yeah. So like, yeah, you just don't pet the fluffy cows. And he's absolutely right when he says that, because that's asking for a horrible death.
All right.
Otherwise, dude's an idiot.
he's just the okay kind of bigot.
Yeah. So, but yeah, these guys, I don't want them in my feed, so I don't interact with them directly. Unfortunately, a few of my friends, I'm not mentioning any names, Ryan and from Legion Talk, will go whole hog on these guys and just start like attacking them. And because he's my pal, his shit shows up in my feed, which means so does theirs.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know why I have the Chrysostines in my feed. No idea, but they're just always there.
I know why I have them in my feed. It's fucking Legion Talk.
and then what sucks is like the Chrysostines are really good at one of them. I can't tell the difference between the two, right? But there's this one that always tweets something that sounds, common sense-ish, but he always skips shit. And it's like, but you skipped this part, and therefore this makes this whole thing null and void, and you're an asshole.
Yeah. That's how that shit works. That's how all this stuff works. It's politics, man. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's tiresome. There are days when I'm just like, all right, whatever. You guys do whatever you're gonna do. I'm gonna sit over here and play video games and ignore the fact that the world's on fire.
When are you gonna do Lies of P again?
I had intended to do that this week, and it just got away from me. I
Got
ended
away
up
from you.
having to do
Yep.
some other stuff.
I know what that's like.
So
I planned on streaming a lot more than I did, and this is the only one. Well, outside of Ballbusters last night, this is the only one I've done, and I think I am going to be doing.
yeah, it's I don't know. I've got the regular scheduled streams that I do, but I never really schedule the gaming streams because again, that's always when I have time or when I
Yeah.
remember to or when I just feel like it. Um, and it's not like a consistent thing. So I'm less concerned with like I'm not really screwing my algorithm on that because there is no real algorithm as
Yeah.
far as that's concerned. But um, yeah, at some point I will be doing it. There's this son of a bitch who's got like this arm that just from a club to a shield that I'm stuck on right now, and I'm not super happy
The
with him.
gold dude.
Yeah, and his like arms bright red. He's up in the cathedral.
Oh, I don't.
He's not even a real boss. He's a mini boss, you know.
Okay.
And anyway, he keeps pushing my shit in, and that's where we're stuck at right now.
Okay. Okay. I was picturing the plant, the whatever chemical plant or whatever that is. I can't.
Yeah,
I
no,
can't
this
recall.
is
I have to go back and play it myself. I got distracted by Lords of the Fallen.
right.
And yeah, I got to go back to Lies of P myself. But I love watching people play those and watching. Yeah, I love watching people play the Dark Souls games.
Look who shows
Speaking
up in
of
chat
Ryan,
right
look,
after I talked a bunch of shit about him. Hey, buddy.
he says it's your fault that all the shit tards are in his Twitter feed.
It's true, especially the Krasensteins or Krasensteins. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, whatever. Those weird twins, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? This has gone way longer than I had planned on, and this has been great. I said we call it wraps because you've got shit to go do. I've got shit to go do. And yeah, I
Sure.
loved
Yeah,
how this
it's been
conversation went. Thanks for joining me. Anything you want to let the people know? The one guy that you stream with that's watching us right now?
who's on my show later. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. This has been a lot of fun. I hope I was coherent enough to answer
No,
questions as best as
I
I
think
could.
this was a great conversation. This is exactly why I wanted to stream it because I knew it was just going to be talking about interesting ideas and just putting new ideas out there. Just how kind of like how does shit work, but just pontificating.
Yeah. Absolutely. I will be on Screaming Into the Void on my channel later today, 4 p.m. Mountain Time. Ryan will be there as well. He's part of the panel. And then we've got Star Trek Engage tomorrow, and I believe we're doing the Squire of Gothos, and our guest for the week is Left Eye Ego, I believe. I have to double check that. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah,
Pretty sure.
it's left. I remember hearing that
Yeah.
from Devil last night. I was like, yeah, Left Eye Ego's on. I love Ego.
Yeah. So, and I will. I don't know. Everything else is kind of up for grabs. I will be also probably over on Exiled Lioness 2 tonight. I
Mhm.
believe there is a stream going to happen tonight. So you can find me there as well as Lawrence Knight, who's my partner on Fridays for Abyssal Musings. So otherwise, yeah, here, there, and everywhere, on the interwebs, usually saying something that's going to make somebody else mad or
That's
posting
impossible to
something that
not
makes
do.
YouTube mad.
Yeah. Well, that's another story. That's pretty easy too.
Yeah. But no, seriously, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
No, I'm glad we could finally have this conversation.
Mhm.
We'll probably do another one again as I get to know more about you, and because I think you're an interesting individual.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, as far as I go, you're not going to see me until I've got a video that will come out on Monday. I'm going to do one on the Ministry of Truth for the children in New York, and who knows what else. And then otherwise, I'll be the late night mayhem. The late night mayhem, is that what he's going with?
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's late night mayhem.
I'll
I
be
think
on
he wanted
Bernie's
to
channel
change the
sometime
name,
on
but
Tuesday evening, And then we've got the weekend pregame with it's going to just be randomness this week, probably on Thursday. So, yeah. Thanks everyone for watching. Sam, thanks for being here. Oh, I forgot one last question, and this is the most important question. We need this on the record. I remember the first time I saw you in the chat and I called you Samiel, and I've heard other people do this, but then I remember you responded, "It's Samuel like Daniel."
Yeah.
I
Most of the time I don't worry about it, but if you're asking for the correct pronunciation, it's Samuel.
okay, right, not Samuel, Samuel.
Yeah, like yeah, if
No,
you think of Samuel but replace the U with an I,
yes,
and yeah, a lot of people will pronounce it Samael because it does look Middle Eastern because it is in fact Enochian, which is very similar to some Middle Eastern pronunciations, but in this case, yeah, it's Samuel. And like some of my other friends will Amira, for example, over on Exile Linus too, she knows it's Samuel, but she pronounces it Samael because she thinks it sounds better.
yeah.
So
I could see her doing that. I just wanted
mhm.
this on the record so I can correct Dermy because he's just an idiot.
He gets it right sometimes, and the other times he just doesn't. So
It's like every other time. Every other time.
yeah. So it's fine either way. Like most people call me Sam or whatever, and so I will answer to most pronunciations of it.
Right.
But it's Samuel.
I just wanted it on the record because I very specifically remember saying it's Samuel like Daniel, and I was like, oh, that's a great way of putting it. That makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for joining me today, sir. This was a great conversation. It was pretty much everything I wanted, just talking about why things are weird. And just around the faith thing and everything. I thought very interesting. Thank you for joining. And I would tell you to wave and look awkwardly at the camera because I don't have an outro, but you can just say bye.